Good morning and welcome to Unity Church of Practical Christianity. We're pleased to welcome both those in our sanctuary this morning and those who are joining us via our Facebook live stream. For those in the sanctuary, please turn off your cell phones to prevent any alerts or conversations being picked up by our live stream microphone. Maintaining social distancing, we will now greet one another here and at home with silent namaste greetings. I behold the Christ in you. Thank you. And to our visitors today, here or online, we appreciate your joining us and welcome you into our Unity family. Our mission here at Unity Church is to realize and express our oneness with God. Our vision statement is, we are a loving spiritual community where we teach, share, and express unity in all life. Today's special music will be provided by Angelo Rapon, our musical director, Julianne Tutko, and our special guest speaker this morning, Reverend Alden Studebaker. Consistent with safety protocols, we remind you to keep your mask on and that we are not singing today. Our message, again, is brought to us by Reverend Alden Studebaker, and it is entitled, Mastering Uncertainty. Alden Studebaker is an author and minister. He has a degree in religion from Western Michigan University. Alden was ordained in 1984 and has served Unity churches in California, Texas, Washington, Ohio, and most recently, Wisconsin. He is the author of Wisdom for a Lifetime in the 21st Century, How to Get the Bible Off the Shelf and Into Your Hands, a Bible handbook for progressive-minded Christians. He's also the author of two novels, The Grid and the Fault, and the comedic book, Hoosieritis, the contagious condition that is in Indiana. He and his wife, Donna, live in the Kansas City area. Reverend Studebaker will now lead us into our opening prayer.
Take a moment to go within and open our hearts and minds to the Spirit of God. The Spirit of God is everywhere present and is right now flowing through each one of us, opening our hearts and our minds to the Spirit of truth and to a message that we can take with us today that will help us in living our lives in a constructive way. And so it's with that intention that we begin here this morning, open and receptive. And so it is. Amen.
With masks on, let's stand and join in affirming our statement of being. All together, God is all, both invisible and visible. One presence, one mind, one power is all. This one that is all is perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. I am an individualized expression of God. I am ever one with this perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. Thank you. You may be seated. Today's daily word centers around remember. And our affirmation is, I bless the people whose lives have touched mine. Grandparents, parents, siblings, members of my extended family, teachers, friends, co-workers, every person I've known has, by his or her example, helped me feel more deeply what it means to be human. Some have encouraged my curiosity. Some have taught me life skills. Some have modeled positive attitudes and behaviors. Some have loved me fully and unselfishly, and some have helped me learn to love even when loving felt difficult. Today, I remember the people whose lives have touched mine. I pause to think kindly of each one as I savor memories of time we spent together. Whether we're still in one another's lives, have lost touch, or are separated by death, I know the experiences we have shared continue to enrich our lives and deeply bless us on our spiritual journeys. And from Romans 1:9, I remember you always in my prayers. And now Angelo will play us into our time of meditation.
Prepare for meditation by gently closing our eyes. And as we do, that is a signal to our body, to our whole being, that for the next few moments we are going to sit in quiet communion with the presence and power of Spirit that is within us. And to help us relax, let us become aware of the flow of our breathing. And take in a deep breath. And as you do, just feel the infinite energy of Spirit filling your heart, filling your body. And as you exhale, feel yourself letting go of all of the challenges and demands of life. And continue in this manner, relaxing, letting go. All of those things in the outer world really seem important in the moment. Not nearly as important as our experience of our true nature. And that true nature is the presence and power of God in us. We sometimes call this the Christ within. And the word Christ means to be anointed. And each of us are anointed. We were anointed when we were first manifested into the world. And we continue in that way as we move forward with our lives. We always have free and clear access to this truth of our being, wherever we are, wherever we find ourselves. And in times of outer uncertainty, what we can count on is that expression of Spirit through us as clear guidance. And that guidance comes in a way that meets whatever our needs are in that moment. We may or may not get the entire picture of what we're to do or what will unfold, but we get what we most need. We get what Jesus referred to as our daily bread, our daily nourishment, our moment-by-moment insight into how we're to proceed in fulfilling our mission, our destiny, each day. And so wherever we find ourselves in this moment, this morning, or later if you're watching this, know that you are always in the presence of God's Spirit. And that God's Spirit is ever flowing and expressing through your heart, your mind, your being. And so I invite you for the next minute or two to just sit calmly and quietly in the peace of this place or wherever you happen to be. And simply let the flow of Spirit guide and direct you for a moment in the silence. Let us come forth from this time of meditation and inner reflection. And we do so with grateful hearts, grateful for the experience of our oneness with God, our oneness with Spirit. And we carry that awareness out into our daily lives with the knowing that all is unfolding in perfect order. And so we give thanks for this opportunity, and we do so in the name and through the power of the living Christ Spirit within us all. And so it is. Amen.
On a clear day, rise and look around you, and you'll see who you are. On a clear day, how it will astound you that the glow of your being outshines every star you feel part of, every mountain, sea, and shore. You can hear from far and near a world you've never heard before. And on a clear day, on that clear day, you can see forever and evermore. On a clear day, rise and look around you, and you'll see who you are. On a clear day, how it will astound you that the glow of your being outshines every star you feel part of, every mountain, sea, and shore.
Well, thank you, Julianne and Angela, for that wonderful song. Wow. It's perfect for a morning like this that's just so clear and sunny and all of that. I'd like to thank you for your invitation to come and guest speak here today. Those of you who are gathered here in the sanctuary, those who are watching on Facebook Live or maybe YouTube later, it's a real blessing to be here. I last spoke in the church here last June when Reverend Chris was looking for a break. He sent me a Facebook message, and he heard I was coming to visit my in-laws. That's Don and Judy over here. And he said, could you speak for me? Now, ministers sometimes like a break when they go on a trip. And I thought, okay, I can do it. So it was good time. It was good to be here then. And the other times I've been here to guest speak, perform some music, going back 14 years. So I feel like I have a kind of a special relationship with the church here. And since you're a blended church, right, because there's some of you who came from Germantown who are part of the congregation now. In 1984, when I was ordained, I interviewed at that church in Germantown. I didn't come, but I do recall the building and the people and all. So Memphis has been on my speaking list for quite a while. So it's good to be here and to visit Don and Judy and to be here with all of you. Well, we've got 2 months to go in 2020. It's been quite a ride, hasn't it? It's been exhilarating. To put it mildly, extraordinary year, a heck of a year. I've seen, maybe you've seen these internet memes where they said you were warned and they show a bottle of MD 2020. Yeah, very, very popular. But it's been a topsy-turvy year. Unprecedented, filled with all kinds of uncertainty about, well, what's next? Well, when we think about 2019, do you remember 2019? That was 5 years ago. And you're thinking, gosh, I would not have expected life to be like this. I mean, how are you all dealing with it? You're coping okay? I mean, I guess we all are. But the one thing that really has changed this year are our routines. You think about what we normally would do, like you go up and meet somebody for the first time like I do here, and there's this natural desire to put your hand out here, and then you go, oh, namaste, or we do the a lot of elbow, we need to put elbow pads on just to deal with all the... Or we want to give somebody a hug who maybe we haven't seen in a while, and we're thinking, are they in my kind of COVID bubble? I don't know, maybe we just have to do this. Or how about travel? Do some of you like to travel? Yeah, this year was my wife's and my 40th wedding anniversary. Thank you. She's a saint, yes. You can tell, right? And I had this vision of us flying to Paris for a week or so. I even looked at places to stay and airline tickets. And as COVID began to unravel and things began to unravel from a travel point of view, it didn't look like that was going to happen. And I remember saying to her about a week before our anniversary, I said, there's a Paris, Missouri about 2 hours that way. And she gave me this look like, okay. On our wedding anniversary, I had planned to make this nice Italian meal. I had everything planned out there. And then I got a message from a very dear friend of mine's brother and said, have you heard from Michael lately? And I said, no, strangely, I haven't. And Michael, an old friend of mine, colleague who lives about an hour from us in Lee Summit. And I said, well, why don't I go check on him? And so we made a wellness check. And very sadly, I discovered he made his transition. I'll tell you, that was kind of rough. And maybe you've dealt with people who've made their transitions greatly and how it impacts you. But we did not have that dinner. I ended up making it a couple months later for her. But I have a high school friend named Andrea. She lives in California, and Her son was going to get married in June at this fabulous chateau in France, and she would send me, links of where it was and everything, and they had their tickets all ready to go. And instead of going to this chateau in France, they went 20 miles up the road to an Airbnb and had his wedding. People have had to make adjustments in 2020. It's been filled with all kinds of uncertainty. And we as human beings, we crave certainty, don't we? We crave the familiarity of our lives and what we're used to doing. One thing that really likes familiarity and lack of uncertainty, that is certainty, is the stock market. I don't know how many of you play the stock market. I have some, retirement investments in that, but I don't pay too close attention to it. But the stock market is not necessarily an indication of how strong the economy is, but what it is, it's a psychological, shall we say, test of how people feel about life, how they feel about the economy. And when it's a bull market, that's what? Well, the stock market's going up, right? And then there's the bear market where it's kind of receding a bit. And so you make financial decisions about your portfolio based on what kind of market it is. In 2020, I don't think we've had a bear market or we've had a bull market. We've had a squirrel market. You ever spend time watching squirrels? I bet there's some out here, because I know there are a lot of oak trees on this property. Yeah, squirrels are really interesting. If you ever watch them, they love to run around and grab things, and they see you coming, and they like to hide behind trees. You ever notice how they just run behind the tree and they look around at you like this? And you just don't know what they're going to do. And that's a little bit like what 2020 has been. It's been kind of like a squirrel. We just don't know what they're going to do. How many of you follow astrology? Some of you. I know she does. Why do we do that? Because we want to be more certain about what's happening for us. We want to see how the transits are. What's the moon going to do? What sign is it in today? Is Mercury retrograde? The answer is yes. Also Mars, retrograde. And at the same time, there's divine order. I thought that'd make a great sermon topic someday. Retrograde Mercury or divine order, which one are you going to choose? But this is not a year any of us are going to forget. We've had COVID, the economy going down because of it. Life has changed. And your own minister, Reverend Mickey, I understand, had to go through COVID and recover from it. And I've had friends who've had it as well, and I have one who's still dealing with the effects of the disease. Now, part of the elephant that's kind of in our room today is that on Tuesday there's going to be an election. And if you hadn't heard about that, you must have been living underground. And when I saw that I was invited to speak the Sunday before the election, I said to myself, oh boy, you really drew one, didn't you? Let me say up front, I strongly believe that churches, houses of faith, need to be nonpartisan spaces. Totally, 100%. You will not hear me or really any other minister, for the most part, suggest that you vote for a certain candidate or on a certain issue. That's kind of dancing on something called the Johnson Amendment, if you're not familiar with that. If you engage in partisan religious activities as a 501c3 corporation, you could be in jeopardy of losing that. Not that that's happened a lot, but it's certainly something to keep in mind. But you didn't come here this morning to hear the preacher talk about politicians. Did you? Really? I didn't think so. You came here to hear spiritual truth that you can use in your life right now, right out the door. And embedded in the name of this church is what? Practical Christianity. Exactly. Now, that just doesn't mean we don't look at or avoid social justice issues that certainly, touch our hearts and things. But you have to admit that there's been something in the last while in the politic of our country that has created a bit of uncertainty in the air. It's gone outside a bit of the scope of what we would call the normality of the political environment. And what's gone on has created a certain feeling of uncertainty, a certain like, gee, I wonder what's going to really go on here. And we certainly have seen all kinds of things happen in the area of social justice in this country in the last several months. I was born in northern Indiana on Lake Michigan. My dad took the train into Chicago every day. I lived in a very cozy little town there where everybody kind of knew each other. My third grade teacher was my father's first grade teacher, you know. And then at age 10, my father moved the family to Honolulu. A very diverse environment. In fact, in Hawaii, there is no majority racial group or ethnic group. The predominant group would probably be Asian American, but everybody's a mix. I had neighbors across the street who were Italian, Japanese. And when you look at them, there were 4 kids. Some of them looked a little more Japanese, some looked a little more Italian. I'm Facebook friends with one of them. She's a great gal. Ann's a great gal. I experienced right off the plane within the first year what you would call some racial injustice on my own street. I got beat up for being the new haole off the plane from the mainland. If you know anything about Hawaiian culture, you know what the word haole means. It literally means foreigner in the Hawaiian language, but in the local pidgin English, it means somebody with my complexion. So I felt a bit of uncertainty when this happened right on the street where I lived, where I got not only taunted but beat up by some of the local kids who looked different than me, and I looked different from them, and so on. So I have a first-hand experience, a little bit of what that's like. I have no idea what it's like to be a person of color growing up in America. I really don't. I'm white. My daughter, who's an anthropologist, often refers to her background as being fluorescent. Mm-hmm. When Ancestry.com had a special, $49 special a couple of years ago, I decided, well, why don't we take it and find out if our parents were lying to us about what our background was. A little bit of truth, a little bit of lying in my case. I found out that I am a bona fide, and this is the percentages of each country I'm from, Sweden, Germany, and the UK. And recently they updated me on the UK. They said you're 10% Welsh. So I've stopped singing ABBA songs. I'm singing more Tom Jones these days. So I don't understand at a visceral level what it's like 24/7 to be uncertain about what authorities might do with you based on your visible DNA. I just don't. And I'm not speaking here in a partisan manner about this. This is a social justice issue. Every person in this country, whether you're a citizen, non-citizen, illegal alien, should have an expectation of equanimity in how they're treated by law enforcement and really anybody else. We're not quite there yet. It's a work in progress for sure. But it pains me sometimes when some people in the public say things that exacerbate that issue. It pains me to see that. So this is a human dignity issue. It's a social justice issue. It's a namaste issue, the Christ in me, the Christ in you. Regardless of what you look like, or what you sound like, or whether your hair is receding, or your ears are out or in, doesn't matter. It's about being in tune with the second principle of unity. If we could put up the next slide. Our essence is of God, and therefore we are inherently good. Our essence is of God, and therefore we are inherently good. Let's put this together in the first person, shall we? Together. My essence is of God, and therefore I am inherently good. Now feel the meaning of those words right now, as if they were true, because they are. They are true. we all share a common humanity and spirituality. And what connects us together as one family is this sense that all of us here are working on ourselves. We are aspiring to develop spiritually. And as we do, we come to understand that who we are is inherently good. We have this built-in goodness from the Creator right out the gate. And by we, it doesn't just mean the we in this room here or the we watching on Facebook Live or on YouTube. It's the we of the 7 billion on the planet. Exactly. So what do we do when we don't know what's really going to happen? When we don't know what's next? We humans, as I said before, crave certainty. We don't like not knowing. And quite often, humans default to a response of fear. We don't know what's going to happen. We get a little suspicious. We're not sure. We hear the rumble of what others are saying. And there's a little bit of anxiety that can sometimes well up within us. And all of a sudden, what happens? We're immobilized. We feel a disconnect from that inherent goodness that is there within us. And so from the essence of our being, how can we, you and I, not only cope with uncertainty, but master it? Next slide. From a biblical perspective, here's how we can begin to develop a sense of mastery over uncertainty. The words of Jesus from the Sermon on the Mount, do not worry about your life. Do not worry about your life. Really? Or how about the next one? Do not worry about tomorrow. And then the writer of Hebrews. Now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. So let's break this down just a little bit here and look at what's between do not worry about your life and do not worry about tomorrow. Jesus said, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body or what you will wear. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? And can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to the span of your life? And why do you worry about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not clothed by one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which is alive today and thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? Jesus is kind of taunting us there, isn't he? Therefore, do not worry, saying, what will we eat, or what will we drink, or what will we wear? For it is the Gentiles who strive for all these things. And indeed, your heavenly Father knows you need all these things. But strive first for the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. So, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring worries of its own. Today's trouble is enough for today. It all boils down to one of Unity's essential teachings. You've heard of the 12 powers. Haven't you taught some classes here on it? And that power that is alluded to in Hebrews here, the power of faith. Faith, we hear that all the time. You need to have faith, right? Faith is what allows us to be okay with uncertainty. Fear feeds uncertainty. So we face that choice every time we run into something that makes us feel a little unsure. I don't know about you, but sometimes I get emails from people, or people put on Facebook stuff that basically says, The sky is falling. Still there. Still there. And you get those. And it's easy to jump into that canyon of fear when all we need to do is simply say, not another one of these. Not going to go down that road. Nope. We need to actualize our faith. We need to put our faith in the good. Emily Cady, who wrote Unity's first book, Lessons in Truth, maybe you've read it before or taken classes in it here, she differentiated between blind faith and understanding faith. And she says in her book, there is blind faith, to be sure. Someone truthfully has said that blind faith is better than none at all, for if held to, it will get its eyes open after a time. But there is also understanding faith. Blind faith is an instinctive trust in a power greater than ourselves. Understanding faith is based on immutable principle. Immutable principle, unchanging principle. We know these principles are always in existence and we can trust them. Faith does not depend on physical facts or the evidence of the senses because it is born of intuition. We can understand things with our logical mind, or we can simply have them revealed to us through intuition, through a knowing, through a sense that what it is we are experiencing is true. So because it is born of intuition, or the spirit of truth ever at the center of our being, its action is infinitely higher than that of intellectual conclusions. It is founded on truth. So faith is a feeling, an experience, a knowing that there are these forces of good ever present working in our lives and in our world. As the writer of Hebrews said, now faith is confidence in what we hope for and the assurance of what we do not see. Confidence. Confidence. Faith is confidence. The word confidence literally means with faith. Con fidelis, from the Latin. With faith. For what we expect or we hope for, and the assurance of what we do not see yet physically. That's what faith does for us. It brings calmness amidst the storm of whatever is raging out there. And so when it comes to life, when it comes to the year 2020, we don't always have all the details, how it's going to work out. But what we do have is that the ultimate outcome being good for all, and to hold to that. And along the way, sometimes we run into the fog. We run into the unknowing. We're into the times of uncertainty, and we just need to learn to be okay with sometimes not knowing, with not being sure. You know, when Moses freed the children of Israel from Egypt and led them across the desert, he didn't know how it was all going to work out. How am I going to feed these people? Well, every day they got just enough to eat, didn't they? They called that manna from heaven. And so our journey in life is a little bit like Moses. Takes a jig here and a jag there and all kinds of things we don't expect. In the end of last year, but not quite a year ago, I finished my work at Unity Christ Center in Eau Claire, and we decided we didn't want to spend another winter in Wisconsin. The winter we were there, the snowfall was of about that high. It broke the record ever. 2 mornings in a row before I went to work, it was 30 below zero, and that's not the wind chill. So we decided we'd put our house up for sale, and we moved into a rental house in Higginsville, Missouri. Why Higginsville, Missouri? Well, Judith's son and Donna's brother, Robert, who I think has been here before as a singer, best friend from high school, owned a home in Higginsville, Missouri, 2 blocks from his house. He was trying to sell it. Nobody'd buy it. And he said, hey, move in. No rental contract. Bring all the animals you want, even if you have a pig. Well, we brought 3 cats, no pig, but... and we thought, well, this would be a nice temporary house. Easy to move in. We'll have friends nearby. Kind of like a way station, or like a rest area on the freeway, where you just stop and you're just going to maybe go in and use the bathroom, maybe eat a snack, check your phone. A way station. It's been now what, 11 months? Yeah, 11 months. I thought we'd be placed in a new ministry by now. I actually did go on a tryout in January, right before things kind of closed down. And I have to admit that the COVID pandemic has certainly not only impacted, businesses everywhere. Let's face it, it has changed business completely. And look, it's really changed ministry as well, wouldn't you say? I mean, you should see a picture of all of you out there like you're ready to hold up a bank. Didn't you feel that first time you walked in the bank with one and go, isn't this wrong? And maybe you've, if you're in the job market, have run into some challenges with opportunities there. It has certainly been a factor that has impacted people's careers, and it certainly has impacted the placement of ministers in churches. If you had told me a year ago that I'd be selling appliances for Best Buy in 2020, I'd think you were absolutely out of your mind. They had this awesome employee app. I used it yesterday to see what my schedule was next week. Friday, 2 o'clock to close. I'll be there. Awesome. I love these phones, don't you? Everywhere are dealing with what to do during COVID and the uncertainty of what follows it. I take a lot of webinars and watch a lot of podcasts from an outfit in Tennessee here called Church Answers. They're more evangelical in their outfit, but really it relates to churches anywhere. And I go to these seminars online, and they discuss really relevant topics that are a part of what churches are dealing with. And the question is, how many people are going to come back when you really open up? How many people are going to just stay home? Because, it disrupted our patterns, didn't it, of coming to church. And they offer a lot of suggestions on how to maybe use it as an opportunity to reach new people and so on. And whether or not you continue with Facebook Live. And a lot of churches are saying, maybe we just keep this going because it's so much broadened the audience that you can reach versus just how many folks can simply come into a sanctuary. And then for those who are on board of trustees, how do we budget through this? Because things were going along a certain way, 2019, and then boom, how do we budget for now 2021? And these are big questions on what to do and how to maybe even start with a broad white sheet of paper and how do we reconfigure what we're doing here in the most efficient way. And so these are things that I've been doing to kind of prepare myself for when eventually I do go on to another ministry. But dealing with uncertainty is a part of the human experience. What happens November 3rd will end up in November 4th, and it'll be just fine. And then there'll be another day on planet Earth, and life will go on. And so it's how we deal with uncertainty that is more important than simply the uncertainty itself. A couple of years ago, I published this book here. I didn't write it. My brother did. It's called Not Just Any Bag of Bones by Jonathan Studebaker. By the way, this is the infomercial part of my talk today. I didn't bring any with me. You can order them online. And my brother lived with uncertainty all 35 years of his life. He was born with the brittle bones disease, osteogenesis imperfecta, a very, very severe case of it. He never really walked. He was always in a wheelchair. And his question every morning was, will I break a bone today? I'd like to read an excerpt from the book. On a warm summer night in July of 1981, I went for a late night walk with my father and Elio. That was our German Shepherd. Our excursion, we went around to the rec center, which was next door to our house. Adjacent to the rec center was a medium-sized hill, which I'd gone down many times. I pretended I was Mario Andretti at the Indy 500. Unfortunately, on this particular try, my wheelchair hit a rock and tumbled on its side. As I anguished in pain, the momentum of the fall caused my chair to slide about 30 feet down the asphalt. My father was close but too far behind. He picked up what would be another broken body, only this time my face was covered with blood. Lots of blood. Well, Dad tried to humor me by saying that it looked like I'd been hit in the face with a cherry pie. While doing his best to clean me up, Dad was concerned about the blood left on the hill outside the rec center. It looked like a stabbing had taken place. The pain was so bad I fell into shock, and we went to the emergency room where the doctor on call said I had suffered a concussion along with 6 fractures in my legs. After much discussion, the two thought it would be appropriate for me to get my broken leg set at Shriners Hospital in the morning. The doctor gave me a pain shot before Dad packed me up for the short ride home. Soon after Dad prepared a makeshift bed on the floor of the living room, I would escape the pain of this terrible nightmare and begin a journey into another world. The next morning, my father took me to Shriners to get my legs set. I was not responding to anyone, and he thought I was just groggy from the painkillers. The nurse immediately summoned the doctor, and after taking a look at me, Dr. Sampson requested an ambulance to take me to Children's Hospital in San Francisco. I had slipped into a coma. After undergoing a CAT scan, the neurologist, Dr. Palmer, informed my father and Dr. Sampson that I had suffered a subdural hematoma. I had 2 blood clots in my head. He said I didn't have a prayer, and at best I would probably end up a vegetable. He strongly urged that they let me go peacefully. Dr. Sampson asked Dr. Palmer to do what he could to save me. Well, he wouldn't make any guarantees. They would have to perform emergency surgery. Soon after the first cut had been made, blood spewed from the top of my head like a Texas oil well. My heart stopped beating, and for 4 minutes the doctors worked frantically to bring me back. Once I had stabilized, the surgery to remove the blood clot from my head resumed. I would later return to surgery to drain more blood from another clot that had formed. So what was it like being dead for 4 minutes? Did you see Jesus? Did you go to heaven? Were there angels waiting for you at the pearly gates? What I experienced during this journey was more of a feeling rather than a seeing. It was the feeling of being in a very peaceful state. I felt as if I were immersed in a bright light. It was very comfortable. I can barely recall the period of darkness. It was more like going through a tunnel before entering this comfort zone. While all this was going on, I was beginning my journey to the unknown. Scientifically speaking, I was in a deep coma, and while I was unable to communicate with anyone in this state of being, I could recall many things that were going on around me. I felt like the boy in the plastic bubble. I heard the nurses talking to me as if I was awake and coherent. I could see my special ed teacher when he came to visit me. He appeared very distraught. I recall hearing my sisters read me articles out of the sporting news. Due to a major league player strike, the only game stories they read came to me from minor league baseball. So they kept me on to date on games going on in the Pacific Coast League. The most important image I can recall during this deep sleep is one that would later save me from being taken off life support. Whenever my father came to visit me, he would gently place his finger in the palm of my hand. He then asked me to squeeze his hand. I did. In fact, I squeezed it on command. He knew there was something going on in the back of my head. He knew I was there. Then he told the doctors, if anyone is going to pull the plug, it would be him. This was the only form of communication I would have with anyone. 2 weeks after my accident, I returned from my journey, and the first 2 people I saw were my mother and the nurse on duty. And I said, "What the hell am I doing here?" She told me I had fallen and I was going to be all right, and then she asked if I'd remember dying in surgery. I told her I could not pinpoint when I actually experienced this peaceful feeling, but I did let her know that something had happened. The next few days were touch and go. I wasn't breathing very well, and the doctors thought they were going to have to do a tracheotomy. Fortunately, it didn't happen. While my head and legs were healed from the fall down the hill, I suffered damage to one of my eyes that is irreparable. The neurologist who didn't give me a chance to live was beside himself, and he said, "This has been a most unusual case," were his parting words to my father. You can say that again. We can all thank Dr. Sampson as well. Following the accident, I slowed down quite a bit. I began to have a new appreciation for life. I looked at things a lot differently than other students my age. And to this day, the experience of that night proved to me that there is something here for me to do. He lived with uncertainty all of his life. We live with uncertainty as well. It's a permanent part of the human existence. And although we crave certainty, we cannot always control the uncertainty that is there. We can provide clarity, spiritual understanding, and faith in the good. And to realize we're here to do what we need to do in the meantime. Uncertainty is not our adversary. It's our opportunity to. If you're feeling uncertain, it's okay not to know. And we can master it with understanding faith in the spiritual principle that who we are is inherently good. We can master it through our regular attunement to God as our source, as our creator and our sustainer in life. That God's there for us. We can master it with the feeling of knowing that what is within us at our core is the anointed, the Christ presence is ever there. And we can be certain that what we need to know or do for today is enough. It's enough. And what happens on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and so on, we could be okay with that. It'll be fine. I'd like to leave you with this next and final slide. Uncertainty equals freedom. Times of great uncertainty can actually be the hours and days when we have the greatest freedom to shape our future. Now, in a moment, I'm going to present a song that's about dealing with uncertainty, so we're going to get set up for that. When I was practicing this song this morning, Don and Judy's dog started singing along with me. And they said, "Do you want me to bring Duke with us today?" And I said, well, between Duke and myself and Angelo just simply being here, we could be called the Cordova Three. But I guess Duke and Angelo will pray with me from afar. Anyway, I'm going to share a song with you I've always loved. Maybe you're familiar with it. Oh, I'm being followed by a moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow. A leaping and hopping on a moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow. And if I ever lose my hands, lose my plow, lose my land, oh, if I ever lose my hands, oh, if I won't have to work no more. And if I ever lose my eyes, if my colors are dry, yes, if I ever lose my eyes, oh, if I won't have to cry no more. I'm being followed by
And if I ever lose my legs, I won't moan and I won't beg. Yes, if I ever lose my legs, oh, if I won't have to walk no more. And if I ever lose my mouth, all my teeth, north and south, yes, if I ever lose my mouth, oh, if I won't have to talk. Did it take long to find me? I asked the faithful lie. And did it take long to find me? And are you gonna say the night I'm being bothered by a moon shadow? Moon shadow, moon shadow. I'm peeping and hopping on a moon shadow. Moon shadow, moon shadow. Moon shadow, moon shadow. Moon shadow, moon shadow.
Thank you, Reverend Studebaker, for that timely and inspiring message and for sharing your multiple gifts with us through your music and the beautiful meditation this morning. And to Angelo, Julianne, and Sailor, thank you, as always, for the addition of your beautiful music to our service. Now is the time for the giving and receiving of our tithes and offerings. This is another aspect of our service that we are adjusting for safety. As you exit the service today, you will find boxes outside each door in which you can drop off your offering. Those at home will find options for giving in our email blast and on our Facebook and web pages. You will also find information there about making a prayer request and membership in our church. But for now, let's hold our gifts in our hands, infusing them with gratitude as we bless them with our prayer for prosperity. Altogether, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Reverend Studebaker will now give us a blessing of our tithes and offerings.
Well, we take this moment to give thanks for these gifts and tithes, given in the spirit of love and generosity. And we now see them going forth to bless this ministry and its work here in this community. And we bless this prayer box and all of the prayers that have been offered, and knowing that God is at work bringing about the best possible outcome. And for this, we give thanks. And so it is. Amen.
For our announcements this morning, in keeping with our health department guidelines, we are reminding our sanctuary audience to please sign the contact tracing sheet at our visitor information station. Also, please note that we are partnering with Memphis Angels for their annual Love Thy Neighbor Day on Saturday, November 28th, which is the Thanksgiving weekend. This is a great opportunity for us to come together and take our love and unity to those in our community who are experiencing homelessness. We're collecting the following items: hats, gloves, scarves, socks, and coats. If you're donating gently worn items, please be sure that they are clean and free of stains or holes. And now please remain in your seats during the peace song and prayer for protection. And for reasons of safety, we ask that you not join in the singing today. At the close of our prayer for protection, our ushers will release everyone row by row, starting with the back of the sanctuary. When your row is released, please exit into the parking lot to avoid creating a crowded environment in the lobby. Our gift shop will be open for one person to enter at a time. As a reminder, there are boxes to receive your contribution checks or cash located outside each of the sanctuary exits. If you're interested in looking over our church's monthly financial statement, they are posted on our collection boxes.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator. Family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
The light of God surrounds you. The love of God enfolds you.